couple weeks ago, Google announced that they're going to be assembling a team to build giant world simulators. So the statements were made by Logan Kilpatrick and Tim Brooks, who are very high up AI researchers and product developers at Google DeepMind. And today I'm going to be taking a look at what exactly are these world models that they're referring to. I mean, giant world simulators, that sounds insane, but what actually is that? What is its purpose? So a world model is pretty much just a simulation of a world state. So a very practical example would be a world model based on a warehouse, right? If you're trying to train a robot to work in a warehouse, you would train it using a world model that represents the scenarios that would happen in a warehouse. And a world model is dynamic, it's real time, it's not like rule based. So different scenarios can happen. It can simulate different things that are going to be happening in the future. And within this world model, a physical AI agent can learn how the world of a warehouse works in full by essentially living in a simulation of it. That's a very practical industrial example, but the cool thing is that we're going to be using these same models to create story worlds that we can interact with, right? So if you're going to make a world model based on a Star Wars world, it would basically have to know everything about Star Wars and be able to predict the different things that would happen, how different characters would act, how different events would go down. And you might be able to find real-time Star Wars stories within that world. Recently, Fei Li, who's a famous AGI AI researcher, came out with a new research lab called World Labs, which is completely focused on world models, and she said herself that she wants everyone to be a world builder. Now in my mind, what I think is that she's basically saying we're all going to be able to create our own games, our own virtual worlds to interact with based on stories we like or stories we came up with, and that's incredibly exciting to me.
Goodbye flatland, welcome the dream. Goodbye flatland, bring us the scene, make it immersive like we've never seen.
While World Labs has not released too much yet, they do have some videos up of demonstrations of some of the things they're working on, but they don't have anything actually public that we can really interact with or learn from yet. But somebody that does is Google. A couple of weeks ago, they released a monumental research paper related to world models with their Google Genie 2 system, which generates playable worlds as well as the World Lab stuff that I was showing before. You can go check out these two research papers below. They're incredibly exciting and show we are definitely very early in this new technology, but it's going to be just getting better from here.
Visual spatial intelligence is so fundamental. It's as fundamental as language. We've got these ingredients: compute, deeper understanding of data, and we've got some advancement of algorithms. We are in the right moment to really make a bet and to focus and just unlock that.
So briefly, I'm going to cover how exactly these world models work internally, step by step. And then I'm going to go back to explaining, what we could see in the future from this new technology. So there's really 4 parts to the world model, and that starts with the perception module. This is essentially where the AI intakes a bunch of data and tries to extract information from it, tries to extract features from it. And the term features in the AI context meaning anything notable in the data, such as a color in an image or an object in an image. Beyond just that, the model will try to make connections with everything, referring to its original context. So every object, every notable thing is not just singled out, it's connected to the greater context of why the world model exists. This is key, as most AI and robot systems are simply reacting to things and trying to predict what a user wants, rather than anticipating things and trying to simulate what might happen if it does this, etc. So after the perception module comes the latent space representation, where a model compresses all the learned data into a latent space. And so a latent space is basically like an AI version of a brain, right? It's a mathematical representation of the world. It's basically how AI understands things, similarly to human consciousness. It's the AI concept that can most be compared to that. And next comes the generative model, which simply takes input from the latent space representation and tries to predict future states based on what it knows from that latent space representation, which sounds super simple, but when scaled up, that is really important. You know, that is basically what these AI video and image models are doing right there, or the AI video models specifically are just trying to predict what's going to happen next based on the state that it already knows. Now finally, there is a controller module, which is a more agentic form of AI than the previous modules. And this module is essentially selecting the best actions to take based on the prediction created by the generative model. So the easiest way I could describe this is with a self-driving car, right? If the generative model of a self-driving car's world model has determined that, you know, there's a bunch of different options you can take, such as turn left at a four-way stop, wait another turn and let another car go, or, you know, if a car starts going as you're turning left, what do you do then? That's a whole nother set of choices, right? So the controller module is going to pick from a pool of choices and determine, you know, what is the best action here to take. Now, if you're the first car there, obviously it would pick to just go ahead and turn left. You're the first car there. That's how a four-way stop works. Even if a car rolls up, you know, if a good controller module is controlling the car, it's not going to make you wait because you were definitely the first one there. However, if a car starts going, then the controller module has to make the correct decision of just stopping, not exerting force over that car and trying to go, right? So those are the four main modules that you'll see in a basic world model component. But to get a more technical look at the inner workings of a modern world model as we know them in the year 2025, early 2025, it's probably gonna look completely different later. We're gonna go ahead and look at Google Genie 2's world model and that model architecture real quick. Now, while they haven't open sourced the code for Genie 2, so we don't know precisely how it works and how it's trained, they have accurately described the model architecture. And of course, they've shown us some of the outputs that it produced, which I'll have on the screen here. But basically how this model works is it's fully trained on video data. All right, so we have a spatial temporal video tokenizer, which that's a mouthful, but essentially what this is doing is processing input video frames from the trained video data and then converting them into a sequence of tokens to capture both the spatial and temporal information, right? So when it comes to video, the Genie 2 model needs to understand how time works in the context of the video, right? So it doesn't want to be producing a video contextually backwards, right? It doesn't want, like, you don't want the output to be a human walking backwards in a world and the world's like deforming, right? It has to make sense. And then you have the autoregressive dynamics model, which is essentially the generative model as we described earlier, which is predicting future frames based on past frames and actions to continue on the context of what is going on. It'll generate these frames sequentially to make sure that it actually makes sense temporally and so that the environment progresses realistically. And then we got the latent diffusion model, which essentially compresses and refines all the generated content. It enhances the details and makes sure that it's temporally consistent and it's consistent any other way that it can be. And yeah, with those descriptions, you can start to see how that kind of compared to what we described earlier with the four main modules, right? Some of them are kind of combined, but yeah, that's what we know about Genie 2. Now, knowing how these world models work, we can really start to think about, what they're going to look like in the future. And we can imagine that we're going to be training tons of different world models on specific things that we want to recreate, simulate, or we could even have a world model that attempts to create its own versions based on a thing. And what I mean by that is, like, you could have a SpongeBob world model that creates its own new SpongeBob episodes with no intervention from the user. Or you could have a world model that people use to create their own things with their own specifications if you add a few other controller modules onto that. But it's really crazy to think about. We can have world models where we feed in all the known data of a certain historical time period, and then we ask it to recreate that historical time period in some sort of simulation. Boom. That is game changing because it has all the data and it can recreate that in an instant. It can fill in the holes with synthetic data based on what we know about that time period. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here. With all that in mind, I think we're going to see the emergence of kind of a new art form to come out of this, to come out of the whole world model technology. And that art form is just going to be ultra realistic simulations, right? Simulations of the past are just very, they're for a very bland purpose, right? They're just used to find out some information. But I think what we're going to see is them used as true art. What is going to be more entertaining than being in a sort of movie that you feel like you're in, right? I mean, that's the dream of VR. That's kind of the dream of video games in general, but are they really immersive enough? I mean, we can definitely get more immersive. We think they're immersive now, but once you have full-on real-time simulations that are reacting to your emotions, etc., with characters and worlds where you don't really know what's going to happen, you don't know what you're going to find, infinite worlds. I mean, a game that can create itself for you based on your interest in real time, that is just something that we haven't experienced yet, and we don't know really how that's going to make us feel. But we can imagine that it's going to be very, very different, very monumental compared to what we're used to. And I think it's going to create a new simulative art form. And I think people should be taking advantage of this and preparing for this. I think people should be ready to work with this kind of stuff, right? A lot of people right now are preparing to how they're going to use AI video to create their movies and TV shows. We're not there yet, but everybody knows it's close. And I think people should be doing the same with this. I think people should learn how world models work, how diffusion models work. I think people should keep up with the research and the technology because, in the future you may be able to build your own games. And if you ever had an idea for a game and you're not really working in the game industry, like, this is huge. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity here that people should be paying attention to. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on, what world models are, why they're so important, and a brief description of how they work. But I just wanted to make it super understandable because I heard about world models back when Google Genie 1 was announced back in February 2024, and I really didn't understand it at all. Like, I just didn't get it. I didn't really know what it meant all year. I was very curious, and every time I looked into it, I felt like I found something different. But basically what I explained today, there is way more to it, but that is essentially the most general middle of the road way that you could describe these world models and what's happening with them. And that's really important to know, I think, because when it gets overly complex, it can be a little confusing. But as soon as I read it, I knew that it was going to be something important, even though I didn't fully understand it. And I hope you get that from my explanations as well. And yeah, I'm really excited to cover the future of these emerging technologies. And since world models and what they're creating is going to be a central focus of my channel, I thought I might as well make a video explaining what world models are, and why you should even care about them. Like, I feel like that's really important for my channel. And yeah, I feel like I pretty much covered all the major stuff that you need to know here. I'm going to be uploading news, research, and discussion videos like this around these topics, around AI and the future of entertainment and gaming. So if you're interested in these, if you found this video informative, go ahead and hit me with a sub down below. Go ahead and comment what you think about world models and what your opinion on the future of them is going to be, because I gave a lot of my opinions in this video of what I think, but they're just opinions and the future could look a lot different. So if you have any opinions on the gaming industry and the entertainment industry, whether you like it or not, whether you think that AI coming to these industries is good or bad, go ahead and comment your thoughts down below, because I'd love to discuss with you guys. And that's really why I made this channel, is just because I want to find people who are thinking about this stuff, because it's not a lot of people, but for the people who are, I think you are thinking about some really important stuff. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this world model video. I hope more world model videos come out, because I really couldn't find any good videos explaining what the world model is. I guess it's because not enough people care yet, but yeah, that's why I want to make this video today. So hope you guys enjoy. Have a good one.